All right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope you're all having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shoemake, and this is the Shoemake Take. And today, we got to talk about the Buffalo Bills. If you guys don't know that reference, ever play a Buffalo gold machine in a casino, that's what that comes from. If you hit like the Buffalo jackpot, or not like a jackpot, when you hit the Buffalo thing, it yells Buffalo. But impromptu reference aside, we got to talk about the Buffalo Bills and what I think they're going to do in 2025. For those of you that do not know what the series is about, this is the Shoemake Take 2025 NFL season preview series. Long name, I know, but where we break down every single NFL team, talking about where I think they're going to be in 2025 and what they're going to look like. So I want to briefly explain to you guys how this works. If you guys don't know, if you guys do know and you want to go ahead and jump right into the discussion, the timestamp is in the video playhead and in the description. So if you want to go ahead and watch, go ahead and knock yourself out. I'm not going to be angry at you. For those of you that do want to know how this works, here is the process. So first, we start recapping 2024 really quickly, just simple. What was their record? What happened? Right? Just so we have a baseline of what their season was but the year before. And then we'll jump into their offseason. Mention, was there any coaching changes? Who they brought in free agency? Who they lost? Who each team drafted? And talk about those draft picks. And then we'll get into the actual season where, how do I feel about the team? Are they going to be good? Are they going to be bad? We'll also talk about some strengths and some weaknesses for each team. And then we'll break down each team's schedule, where we'll break down if it's easy, is it difficult, identify some key matchups that I think are very important. And then we'll conclude that with my official record prediction for the 2025 season. And then we'll wrap a bow on the whole thing, talking about some storylines that I think are very important for each team, for everyone to follow each team. So without further ado, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills. I'm sorry, that's just so fun to say. I'm sorry. Using your free will is pretty interesting at times. It can be pretty fun. So jumping into the Buffalo Bills, last year was a really good year for the Buffalo Bills. They finished 13-4, and they proved the doubters wrong en route to the second seed. If you guys remember, a lot of people thought the Bills would take a step back going into 2024, and they ended up being one of the best teams in the entire conference yet again, but once again, fell short in the AFC Championship to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're losing to the Chiefs in the playoffs for the Buffalo Bills. What else is new at this point? Very unfortunate end, very familiar end for the Bills. But despite everything that people said they were going to be, taking a step backwards, they had a really good year last year, and very, very encouraging to see what they did and how well they were able to navigate through it as well. And their offseason starts off with a little bit of coaching changes, not by a lot. They hired Chris Tabor to be their new special teams coach, along with some other assistants that they brought in. Special teams was an issue last year for Buffalo, so they decided to go in and bring somebody new, bring in somebody fresh. I can respect it. But we'll have to see what happens. Is one of the big storylines for the Bills. That's going to be a very quiet one as well, because I expect their offense and defense to be good. So their special teams should also be good. Along with that, the other big news in their offseason is James Cook, their current starting running back, is in a contract holdout. He wants a new contract after having a career year last year. He had like 16 rushing touchdowns, was a Pro Bowler, and he wants a new contract. And the Bills have not seemed very eager to give it to him. Me personally, I would rather have James Cook than not have James Cook. But last year, was he dominant? Not really. It was like a B+ year, maybe an A- at best. It wasn't anything close to like what Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs did, for example. But it was still a really good year and a career year at that. So I am still on the side that, yeah, Buffalo, you should pay him. You should pay him, give him what he's worth, or at least what he thinks he's worth, and just lock it up and continue, because you don't want to go into this year without having him as your number one running back. It's a lot better just to keep him here than to get rid of him. So get that done, Buffalo. Hopefully training camp starts. By the time you guys are seeing this, I don't know if the Bills training camp started at this point. Maybe they did. I'm not sure. But it is around that time. So him not being there is going to stink. So other than that, let's talk about their free agency and who they brought in, because they brought in a few people, not a whole lot, but that's okay. They re-signed a couple of their guys already on the offensive side of the ball. And the number one spot, the number one player that they brought in on offense, is wide receiver Josh Palmer, coming from the Los Angeles Chargers. I think this is going to be a really good scheme fit in Buffalo. Not only is he primarily a slot and a good run after catch guy, but also he can line up and play a little bit outside, so he brings that versatility. I think he's going to fit well in Buffalo's offense. They also brought in wide receiver Elijah Moore, who's also another slot receiver, but I think he's just going to be a backup who's going to come in at certain points, obviously just sub in and whatnot. But good depth, at least, young and talented. And then on the defensive side, they brought in a multitude of players. They brought in Larry Ogunjobi on the defensive line. He is going to be serving a 6-game suspension. I don't remember what it was for, but that is something to follow throughout the beginning of the year. And then they brought in Joey Bosa. They let go of Von Miller, replaced him with Joey Bosa. When he's on the field, he's great. Problem is he's not on the field that much. He can't stay healthy, so we'll have to see. It's an only 1-year deal, which is reflective of that liability. But we'll have to see. I'm intrigued. And they also brought in edge rusher Shaq Thompson, another longtime NFL veteran, to provide depth. I really like this signing. Still has something to give. Plays a lot. He's played in the NFL, has started a ton of games. So bringing a guy like that for experience to back up, great to me. And then they also reunited with former first-round pick Tre'Davious White. Very unfortunate how his careers went. He tore his ACL a while back and then got cut by the Bills and then kind of bounced around. He was with the Rams last year, got cut, and then went to the Ravens to finish out the year. But now he reunites in Buffalo with the team that drafted him, and then he gets to compete with all these young guys that are there, including first-round pick Maxwell Harrison, who we'll talk about here in a minute. But bringing him back, I like. And then Dane Jackson was already on the Bills. I forgot to leave him out as a re-signing, so that's my bad. But they did bring him back, so that it counts for something. So overall, I think the free agency was pretty good. It was pretty good. They brought in a couple players to fill in a couple spots, and that's kind of what the Bills are at right now. They need to be a draft and develop team. They got a lot of high-name players under contract, including Josh Allen. So with big money contracts, I should specify. So the Bills need to be drafting well, and they've done a pretty good job at drafting, which, and that being said, your free agency hauls are not going to be very fruitful, but this one I would say is solidly fruitful. I think they did the best they could, and they got some really good players, and overall I think their depth on this team is much better because of it. And when you look at who they lost almost nothing. The biggest loss on offense was Mac Hollins, which is unfortunate. Their culture and their city has really embraced him in Buffalo, but to see him go to New England, it sucks. But I mean, Mac Hollins is a low-end starter in the NFL, if high-end backup. So you're not losing it's not like you're losing Stephon Diggs or anything. So it's fine. Then they lost a tight end, lost center Will Clapp. These are backups. Fine. And then they lost Juwan Smoot, Casey Toohill, and then edge rusher Von Miller. They cut him. Last year was not that great, really. I think he's about that time he's going to retire. But he did end up going to the Washington Commanders, so he's still trying to play it out. We'll see what he does over there, and it'll be interesting to talk about once we get to talking about the Commanders way down the line. They also go to punter Sam Martin. Got to give the special teams guys some love as well. Has been there for a few years, so there is that. But that is who they lost. They lost barely anything, so they added more than they lost. And then we get into their draft, and let me just take a second. My throat is very dry. I am sorry. I just got done recording the Patriots video right before this one. And all these AFC East videos are pretty long. They're all over 40 minutes so far. So pretty interesting because normally I don't make videos over 40 minutes. Not like that. Not very often. So seeing it, pretty interesting. So continuing on with the draft though. This draft was very encouraging for the Buffalo Bills. Starting with Maxwell Harrison, their first round pick, corner out of Kentucky. Ran a 4.2 40. I think it was 4.28. Really, really fast, great speed, great mental ability too. This guy is the solution to stopping Xavier Worthy. That is why they drafted him straight up. You cannot tell me otherwise. They drafted Maxwell Harrison because, of course, they needed corner, obviously. That was a need for them. But they drafted the 4.2 guy to compete with the Chiefs' 4.2 guy. Similar to how the Bills drafted Dalton Kincaid, so they had their version of Travis Kelce, right? And so I really like the pick, though. Very talented, very good kid, very good human being. Really excited to see what he can do. He's not going to have to start right away. Their cornerback room is pretty full. So if he's not ready, they're not going to rush him. But if he's ready to go, then he's going to go out there and we're going to see what he does. So I'm excited to see what he does whenever he steps onto the field. But I really do like the pick. Then they addressed another need. TJ Sanders, defensive tackle out of South Carolina in the second round. This guy played a lot of games for the South Carolina Gamecocks. He also lined up and down the defensive line, so very versatile. But most of his production came at defensive tackle. I think that's where they're going to play him. So he's going to be a backup to Ed Oliver where he's not going to have to play a whole lot. He's just going to be in the rotation, and then maybe in a year or two down the line, he's going to be able to play and become a full-time starter for them. So no rush to develop him either, which I like. And then another guy that they don't have to rush early, but has a lot of upside, is edge rusher Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, continuing in the SEC here with 3 straight picks. Landon Jackson is a guy that I really liked coming out of college. I thought he could have gone in the second round, got him in the third, solid spot for him to land. And this guy, long, athletic, powerful, got a lot of sacks at Arkansas. Also a very smart, instinctual player, and he also plays really well against the run. There was a lot of things to like on Landon Jackson's tape. It's just his ceiling is not super duper high, but I think he could be a really good player. And with Shaq Thompson and Joey Bosa there, he's just going to be in the rotation, not have to play a whole lot, not a lot of pressure yet again. And this is what you like to see with teams that need to draft and develop. You want guys that you don't have to immediately start right away, but have high upside so they can be brought along properly and adjust to the NFL properly. So seeing that and seeing what the Bills are doing, great process here. And then they continue on the defensive side, drafting Keon Walker in the 4th round. This guy, more of a solidified defensive tackle, but also played some other positions on the defensive line. So has a little bit of versatility, but didn't do a whole lot. So you're just kind of banking on his physical traits and developing him that way. And then they also drafted Jordan Hancock in the 5th round, former Ohio State Buckeye. This guy didn't have a whole very high ceiling, but very versatile. Played inside and outside at Ohio State, and also started over 40 games. So a lot of experience, which is very much valued for the Bills. And then in the 5th round, they drafted tight end Jackson Hawes. I think he came out of Georgia Tech. He's a pure blocker. He's going to be behind Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. So we'll just have to see what he does, but probably just going to be blocking for the most part in his career. But important though, very important position. And then they drafted Dorian Strong, yet another corner in the 6th round. This guy also started a lot of games, had some good numbers at Virginia Tech, didn't allow a lot of passes and completions to go his way. So you like the upside here, you like what he could be. And then they drafted Chase Lunt in the 6th round as well, former tackle out of UConn. He is just going to be a backup tackle. I don't know if he's ever going to compete for a starting job, not with Deion Dawkins and, what's his name? I think his name is Spencer Brown. I don't think he's going to be competing with those guys. I think those guys are pretty much set in stone at this point. But I do like his size. I like his measurables. And he has been training at left tackle and right tackle. So maybe a swing tackle in the future could be a good role for him. And then they drafted Caden Prather in the 7th round, 6'3", over 200 pounds. So really good size. Also works really hard. Going to be fighting for a roster spot at the very end. But he could be a solid depth player for them later on down the line if he makes the roster. But we'll have to see. So overall, are the Bills an improved team? Yes, they are. They are an improved football team. Obviously, their free agency was good. Their draft was good. They didn't lose a whole lot. And also a lot of their continuity is still the same. So that is very encouraging for the Bills, especially for a team that really needs to take a step forward and finally do something other than lose to Kansas City in the playoffs. It's starting to get old. But at the same time, the Bills are not going to look old whatsoever. This team is still going to be absolutely fantastic. And that's what I think. The Bills are going to be a really good football team. No matter what, they're going to be competitive. They're going to win a ton of games. And I think at the very least, they're going to be in the divisional round. I don't see any reason why they would not be. And until I'm proven wrong, this is what I'm sticking with. This is what I'm going to roll with, sticking with my guns. And they think about it. They got solid weapons, great offensive line. Defense has got a lot of talent. There's no reason to not have the Buffalo Bills at least in the divisional round, to me. And their strengths, obviously, quarterback, Josh Allen, best quarterback in the league, arguably. There's nothing that needs to be said there that hasn't already been said. Running back is a strength with this team. We'll go with the premise that James Cook is going to be here, signed, and playing on week 1. James Cook, good running back, one in the committee. But the two guys behind him were good last year. Very sneaky good. Ray Davis, the former rookie out of Kentucky, and then Ty Johnson. These guys didn't do a whole lot in terms of production. But when they were on the field, they were very effective and very efficient, where whenever James Cook had to go out, these guys carried the workload very well and kept the offense moving. So I'm really excited to see what this trio does in year 2 together. And I think the running game is going to be really good. The running game they leaned on heavily last year in Buffalo compared to previous years. And seeing all those guys do well gives me a lot of confidence. And offensive line is what really gets me excited because the offensive line for Buffalo is one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL. They were fantastic last year. Had an all-pro, I'm pretty sure, at one spot. Can't remember who it was. I apologize. But they were fantastic. And then their defensive line is also really good. I already mentioned Ed Oliver, TJ Sanders. Then you have Joey Bosa, Greg Russo, Shaq Thompson, AJ Epinesa. You got a lot of really good players and a lot of good depth on the defensive line, up and down, from the interior all the way to the edge rushers. Larry Ogunjobi there as well when he comes back from his suspension. So the defensive line should be really good for Buffalo this year. I'm really excited about it. And then linebacker, another one that should be strong. Obviously, Matt Milano. Really, really good linebacker. Fantastic player. Dorian Williams, their second-year linebacker out of Tulane, who they drafted last year, I think in the 3rd round or 4th round. Showed some good signs last year and developed pretty well. So I'm excited to see what he can do in year 2. I think their linebackers are going to be pretty good this year as well. The only weaknesses, though, on this team, I would say, are wide receiver, just because they don't have enough high-end talent. Joshua Palmer is a B-tier receiver. Khalil Shakir is B+, even though I'm a big fan of Khalil Shakir. And then Keon Coleman's going into year 2, the former receiver out of FSU. Was kind of disappointing last year. Didn't do a whole lot. But we are hoping that he can really step up this year and be that true wide receiver 1 that the Bills need. But with that being unproven, I should say, it is going to be kind of a weakness in terms of they just don't have a whole bunch of great talent. But they got a lot of solid, good players. And so with Josh Allen being your quarterback, that's no problem at all. So it's not going to be a weakness where I see it as an issue. It's not going to be an issue at all for the Buffalo Bills at wide receiver. But it is probably one of the worst spots on their team compared to everything else. And then safety is the other one. I cannot remember the free safety's name. I'm so sorry. But DeMar Hamlin, they brought him back. He's okay. Statistically, he's not the best safety in the league, but he's stable. He's serviceable at minimum. So that's fine. I can respect it. And so the safety spot is going to be interesting. It's not going to be great, but I don't think it's going to be a liability either. Same thing with the same argument I made with wide receiver. So this Bills team is going to be fantastic. They're going to be really fun. What does their schedule look like? Because their schedule is very mixed. The first half is super easy. Week 1, you host Baltimore on prime time. That's not easy. I think Baltimore wins that game, but Buffalo could also win it as well. These two teams are neck and neck with each other all the time. But after that, you go on the road to face the Jets. Week 2, you're winning that game. Then you host Miami, winning that game. Then you host New Orleans, winning that game. And then you host New England, winning that game. You are winning all 4 straight of those games, and all 3 of them are divisional games. So you knock those 3 out right away while they're all still not at full strength. Like that for the Bills, very advantageous. And then you go on the road to face the Atlanta Falcons, the next really tough game on their schedule. And I think they win this game. I think the Buffalo Bills are much better than the Atlanta Falcons. So that should not be much of an issue. It'll be a good game, but I think the Buffalo Bills will win that one for sure. And then you go into a bye week where you're either going to be 6-0 or 5-1. So that's very encouraging. And then coming off the bye, you go on the road to Carolina. Their defense was awful last year and is still going to be developing. I think that Josh Allen mauls them. So that will be a win, obviously. And then the next big test is at home against Kansas City. Last time these two teams were in Buffalo in the regular season, Buffalo won. So that's helpful for them. But it is the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be a very tough game. The toughest game on their schedule, if not named the Baltimore Ravens. And in the second half of this schedule, things get a lot tougher. You go on the road to face the Miami Dolphins to start off this stretch in Week 10. I think that's a win. I think you can sweep the Dolphins this year. And here's where it gets really tough. You host Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tough one. On the road against Houston. They lost against them last year. That's tough. Then you go on the road to face Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's going to be a strong defense. It's going to be difficult. That's going to be a tough one. And then Cincinnati, these two teams always play each other pretty well, and the Bengals have been known to potentially get one over on the Bills. So that's not a gimme either. And then you go on the road to face Cleveland. Fine by me. So I think that's an easy win. But not to mention here, in these past handful of games, you're on the road 5 out of the 7-game stretch. And then you close out the year hosting Philly, which that probably will be a loss for the Buffalo Bills, honestly. But then you host the New York Jets at home for your home closer. If the Bills are, if their playoff seeding is set and their starters are benched, then the Jets might win this game. But if the starters are out there, I think the Bills win this game for sure. So while the second half is a lot harder, it still is pretty manageable. The Bucs are a beatable team. Houston is beatable. Pittsburgh is beatable. Cincinnati is beatable. These aren't teams that I would say is a definite loss for the Buffalo Bills. They might lose a couple here, but I can't say it's a definite. They could win all of them. They could lose all of them. It's very much possible, but I think they're going to come out of it mostly pretty well off. But their most important games, obviously, Baltimore, Kansas City, Philly, and then weeks 11 to 15, like I mentioned, Tampa Bay all the way down to the New England Patriots. Because the Patriots, I didn't mention this earlier, but they are on the road. Patriots do play Buffalo pretty well in New England, so that is not a 100% gimme. So the Buffalo Bills are going to have an interesting time with this schedule. We're going to really see this Bills team start off dominant like they almost always do. And then in the second half, when things get a little bit tougher, they're going to be, they're going to be in dogfights. They're going to be competing. They're going to be fighting. But I think they're going to come out of it pretty darn good. And so that being said, I have them making the playoffs and, of course, finishing first in the division as they're the last AFC East video coming out now. And I should say it like this, my official record prediction for the Buffalo Bills, I have them going 12-5. I think that's a very fair record for the Buffalo Bills. They're still going to be fantastic. They're going to be fun to watch. They're going to be good on both sides of the ball. And once again, I have them going to the playoffs and going into the divisional round, where that's going to be one of our biggest storylines to watch for the Buffalo Bills. And special teams, first on the list, I mentioned that earlier. New coach. That was, special teams had issues last year, so going to be quiet, but will be interesting to follow. And then Keon Coleman in year 2 is this big one, because the Bills, while their wide receivers are good, they need Keon Coleman to step up and emerge and potentially be great. Now, I'm not saying he needs to break out and have like 1,500 yards or anything like that, but he needs to show some real improvement into being that physical, dominant X receiver that we saw at FSU, where he was a 50-50 demon. So you want to see that more. You want to see that develop. And if he does develop and improve, that will be very exciting. And then continuing on the offensive side, will Dalton Kincaid bounce back? He's a former first-round pick who's been pretty disappointing. Honestly, he was supposed to take over for Dawson Knox, but Dawson Knox has outperformed him, and also Dalton Kincaid has dealt with injuries as well. So for the Bills' sake, I want Dalton Kincaid to play well. He's a good tight end, great receiver, and the fastest tight end in his draft class, so he's got a lot of physical upside. I want to see him do well, and I'm hoping that he does. And then Maxwell Harrison is my storyline number 4. Like I said earlier, I really like Maxwell Harrison. I want him to do well. I'm rooting for this guy to do well. And I don't know when he's going to see the field. Maybe he balls out in training camp and earns a starting spot, then we're going to see him sooner. If not, then that's no big deal. But I want to see him out there. I want to see what he does against Xavier Worthy, covering him, because that battle when they play against Kansas City is going to be so fun to watch. And I expect him to be shadowing Xavier Worthy for most of the game. And then the final storyline, I mentioned it. Can this team do something other than losing to Kansas City? Can this team overcome the Chiefs in the playoffs if it comes down to it? Because the Bills have been good. They've been fantastic. And I would argue that a lot of those years, they were better than the Kansas City Chiefs on paper and record-wise for the most part. And so seeing them lose to Kansas City over and over and over again, and not just lose over and over again, but have control and then shoot themselves in the foot. Shoot themselves in the foot, boom, and then the Chiefs win every single time. Can the Bills finally get over that hump? It's similar to the Baltimore Ravens. They are in a similar spot where they shoot themselves in the playoffs over and over and over again and beat themselves more than they're actually beating their own opponent. So the Bills, if they can do that and beat the Chiefs in the divisional round, or beat Baltimore in the divisional round, I don't buy that. I have the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC Championship. So we'll have to see. But Buffalo, they really, if they face Kansas City in the playoffs, they cannot afford to lose again, which does not look well for their organization, because it'll be the same thing. It'll be the same song and dance once again. So if that situation comes to it, they need to step up and beat Kansas City. I think their roster is better. I think they're a much better football team than Kansas City right now. And so that should be a game. If that comes to it, that they should win. This is their opportunity for that. So that is going to do it for me with this discussion. This one did not eclipse 40 minutes. I'm positive about that. This is like 35 minutes, I think. Why does what it start? 10:15, it's now 10:40. What is that? 25, 35? Yeah, so 25 minutes, so it's kind of a shorter one. But then again, the Buffalo Bills, everybody knows they're going to be good. So there's not very much discussion of what this team is going to look like. We already know they're going to be good. They're going to be fantastic. But I thought they had a good free agency. I thought their draft was really good. They invested a lot on the defensive side of the ball. And so there's a lot to like. And for now, that will do it for our discussion. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And if you've made it this far, please consider hitting the like button and the subscribe button. They're both free. Only takes a couple of seconds. And also, it helps the channel out tremendously as we continue to grow our community. We're over 100 subscribers now. We're almost at 130. And we need to reach 500 before the end of the 2025 regular season. So hit those two buttons. Spread the word. Get people here locked in and locked on to the Shoemake Take. Coming out with great content for you guys all the time. Also, please let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. I want to see more comments from you guys. Please, please, please. Do you guys think the Bills are going to be good? Do you think the Bills are going to be worse than 12-5? Are they going to inevitably lose to the Chiefs again? Let me know what your guys' thoughts are and why you guys are going to be watching the Buffalo Bills in 2025. Lastly, make sure you guys share this video, share my content overall, and follow me on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that good stuff. Follow me there, and as I'm continuing to get ready to post social media stuff over there anyway, so we're going to be doing that type of stuff here later in the week, so that'll be exciting stuff, but also that'll help me grow the community a lot more. So that will do it for me today, guys, though. I hope you guys have enjoyed talking about the Buffalo Bills. I had to get one more in there, sorry, and I will see you all next time.